Today I'm reacting to Jeremy Ethier's "You're Wasting Your Money on Protein" video. My name is Dave and I run one of the largest personal training companies in the entire world. Let's watch the video.
Do you expect your muscles to grow bigger and bigger by shoveling high protein into your body? But what if eating more protein isn't just unnecessary, but actually makes it harder to grow? Today I'll walk you through the new research that challenges everything we thought we knew and reveal the two things that actually build more muscle than protein. But how did protein become known as the most important nutrient?
Spoiler alert, protein is the #1 macronutrient to put on muscle mass. So I'm curious what he's going to say.
Most important nutrient in the first place.
I mean, there was some diets, I'm not gonna lie, I ate 140 egg whites a day.
People think it's crazy that I've eaten 200 grams of protein for almost 20 straight years.
When you lift weights, you trigger muscle protein synthesis, a molecular message to your muscles that says build. But building muscle is just like building a brick house. Without bricks, nothing gets built. Protein is those bricks. Eat enough of it and you've got the raw materials to actually turn that growth signal into new muscle. But when gym bros learned this, they didn't just want to build houses, they wanted mansions. Back in the golden era, it wasn't uncommon for bodybuilders to eat over 300 grams of protein per day, a dozen eggs in one sitting, and pounds of chicken breast. Fast forward to today, and you'll still...
These bodybuilders were also probably 260 to 280 walking around throughout off season, so 300 grams is not crazy.
You'll still find lifters chasing 200 plus grams of protein per day or following the 1 gram per pound of body weight rule like it's gospel. I know I did. I used to believe that if I didn't hit my daily protein target, I was leaving tons of gains on the table. But it wasn't just bodybuilders. The food industry realized that they could cash in on this obsession. Suddenly, you've got protein cereal, protein chips, protein cookies, even Starbucks lattes with extra protein. Most of it is just cheap protein sprinkled in, but because they can slap high protein on the label, they charge you 20% more and people will happily pay for it.
Not all protein's the same. Protein scaled between 1 and 100. 1 is the very low quality, 100 is very high quality. So to give you an example, something like a collagen protein is probably like a 10 out of 100. Whey protein's 110. And you get to egg whites, tuna, chicken, those are the higher range, 80 to 90. You get towards peas and lentils, it's about 50.
But here is where things get really interesting. Recently, a group of top protein researchers were curious about just how much extra muscle you build by eating more protein. So they got together and they gathered every long-term growth study they could find, 62 in total, where participants lifted weights but ate different amounts of protein. Then they plotted all those results on a graph. Protein intake on the bottom, muscle growth on the side. The results were not what they were expecting. In one study, participants ate what most lifters would call low protein, so 0.45 grams per pound of body weight. For someone who weighs 180 pounds, that's just 82 grams of protein a day, basically 2 chicken breasts. This mark on the y-axis represents how much growth they got. Now, what happens if you take a similar group of lifters, but you feed them double that, 4 chicken breasts per day? Using gym bro math, that should mean at least double the gains, right? Surprisingly, the growth was pretty much identical.
He's being misleading. I'll tell you why in a second.
But now let's really push it. 270 grams per day. That's 6 chicken breasts. Well, despite participants in this study eating 3 times more protein, they actually gained less muscle. But I know what you're thinking. Jeremy, you can't just cherry pick studies and call it a day. And you're right. So let's widen the lens a bit. Here are all the studies in the analysis that looked at moderate to high protein intakes, with just 2 outliers removed because they reported way larger than normal gains. Now, if eating more protein really has a powerful effect on growth, you'd expect these dots to climb up and to the right.
The trend is basically flat. And so what that means is the anticipated benefit of pushing your protein even higher is very, very small. And frankly, so small that many researchers aren't even confident that a benefit exists at all.
I read this analysis, I've seen these studies, and one thing he's not telling you guys is that this is actually with untrained people that don't go to the gym, don't work out, don't have a lot of muscle mass as it is. And the thing is, if you're untrained, you can do pretty much anything to put on muscle mass. I could have someone walk on a treadmill and put on muscle. If I do that right now, I'm actually gonna lose muscle. So that's a little deceiving. I do think most people who are watching Jeremy Ethier's channel probably do work out. This doesn't really apply to them, and I'm kind of annoyed he didn't tell you guys the full story that this was untrained people, not athletes.
That's Dr. Eric Trexler, a published researcher at Duke University who spent his career studying muscle growth.
If you're building a house and you have more bricks than the blueprint calls for, that doesn't mean you end up with a bigger house. Basically, you just end up with a bunch of leftover bricks, and eventually you're gonna have to haul them away from the construction site. So,
Okay, so I get what he's saying, but at the same time, so you have 3 macronutrients. You have protein, carbs, and fat. Protein's 4 calories per gram, carbs 4 calories per gram, fat's 9 calories per gram. The benefit of protein is, 1, it helps you put on lean muscle mass, restore broken down muscle tissue. 2, your body sucks at metabolizing it, you stay full longer. It's called TEF, thermogenic response of eating food. Yeah, you can add more bricks, but you're gonna get more bricks through carbs and fat anyways. If you're trying to put on muscle mass and lean out, the more protein, the better.
when you're building a house, that's tedious, it's a waste of time.
But graphs are one thing. Let's say you somehow manage to convince a pro bodybuilder to not just cut his protein intake in half, but to stop eating meat, eggs, and fish, getting all of his protein only from plant-based sources. Surely, he would shrivel up and lose all his gains, right? Well, that's exactly what pro-natural bodybuilder Alex Leonidas did 2.5 years ago. Alex used to eat 200 grams of protein every single day. Now, he eats as low as 90 grams per day, and all of it comes from plant-based sources.
I've noticed absolutely nothing. Recovery is exactly the same, progressive overload.
It's actually easier to maintain muscle mass than put it on. You can have 90 grams of protein right now and still maybe maintain his muscle mass, but I guarantee you it's much harder to put on this extra muscle mass and get to that level by only having 90 grams of protein, especially with having that protein be not as high quality of protein as meat.
The same as it's been for many years. I would consider myself an elite natural lifter. I've been documenting all my training since 2020. I have SD cards filled to the max. My gains have not been affected whatsoever. I've tried up to 220 grams, including being at single-digit body fat. Comparing that to 120, which is 100 grams less, I'm just as strong as I've ever been. 405 bench at 181.
So if you're wondering how far a person can possibly get,
So I'm also curious if his strength actually went up as well as if his muscle mass actually went up too, or if it stayed the same. He's been training for 2 years and there's been no growth or no change. Probably isn't a good thing.
with a low protein diet, Alex is living proof that the answer is pretty damn far.
I just feel like people need to focus more on their health instead of just one sole macronutrient, protein. And I'm not the first person to report this. I don't know if you've looked at Brian Bornstein and a couple other guys, but it's a common thing that they're now dropping their levels to around the zone that I'm talking about. And that's been surprising to me too, because now I'm saving money and I don't have to stress about it as much.
All right, so 2 things. People do need to focus on the health and overall well-being, not just protein. That being said, if you prioritize your protein, you're going to be eating healthier food regardless. If I'm going to choose between egg whites and a pancake, egg whites are protein, pancakes not. Egg whites are probably going to be a better option. 2, you're saying protein's expensive. Like, have you guys seen chicken breasts? Like, you can buy like a pound for like less than $5. You get a bunch of them at Costco in bulk, freeze them, throw them in the air fryer, like you're good. It's cheap to get high quality protein. I don't know what he's saying with that.
But now you're probably wondering, if protein doesn't matter as much as we thought, then what does? Well, let's take a look at a few clues. In one study, researchers had one group of people double their protein intake to about 140 grams a day, while another group stayed at 70. The catch? Neither group trained. And after 8 weeks, guess what happened? Nothing. No muscle, no strength, no gains, just more expensive pee. On the flip side, another study looked at patients with kidney issues who were forced into extremely low protein diets, less than 50 grams a day. Now you'd expect that would completely shut down muscle growth. But when half of them started lifting weights, even on that tiny amount of protein, their muscles still got over 20% bigger and 30% stronger.
Muscle mass takes extra energy to maintain, and so it makes your metabolism go up, but your body doesn't want to do that. But it's going to do whatever it can to get your metabolism actually slower. So unless you're lifting weights, your body is actually going to burn muscle mass for energy. It's called catabolism, and it's going to keep as minimal muscle mass as possible.
But what about your diet? What if I told you eating this bowl of rice could get you the same muscle growth as eating all this extra protein? Well, in one experiment, researchers split lifters into 3 groups. All of them followed the same lifting program. Group A got nothing extra, just their normal diet. Group B added a 2,000 calorie shake made mostly of carbs. And Group C added a similar 2,000 calorie shake, but with 82 grams of protein mixed into it. After the 8 weeks, both shake groups gained significantly more weight and muscle than the control group who didn't get extra calories. But here's the kicker. The carb group experienced similar gains as the extra protein group. suggesting it was the extra calories, not the protein, driving the gains.
You guys notice the trend here? He keeps going towards untrained people. If you're untrained and you work out, you're gonna put on muscle mass, right? Muscle mass, as I said before, takes extra energy to maintain and put on. So if you wanna put on muscle mass, you generally have to be in a caloric surplus. If you're not in a surplus, you can have a hard time putting on extra muscle mass and weight.
And we see the same thing in the opposite direction. In fat loss studies, people who train hard and eat plenty of protein can still build muscle if they're at maintenance calories or in just a very small deficit. But once that deficit gets too steep, around 500 to 700 calories per day, most people start losing muscle, even with a high protein diet.
We probably have 1,000 people go through our doors every single year. Most people are pretty new to the gym, want to lose weight, get toned up, and put on muscle mass. So we do have them on either a 500 calorie deficit or generally, most of the time, a 750 calorie deficit per day, which means you're going to be losing a pound and a half per week or 4 to 6 pounds per month. If they're giving their body a reason to maintain and put on muscle mass through strength training, they're not going to go catabolic, so they're not going to lose muscle mass. They're actually going to put on muscle mass. As I said before, if you are untrained, you can put on muscle mass doing any sort of movement that's going to actually give your body a reason to put on extra muscle mass. If you're on a 500 calorie deficit, you're not putting on muscle mass, you're going to lose muscle mass and body fat as you lose weight. If you're on that deficit, your protein is up, and you're strength training, you're more than likely not going to lose any sort of muscle mass if you're untrained. If you're trained, you may lose a couple pounds, but you'll lose predominantly body fat.
So you put all these studies together, and the most important drivers of growth becomes quite obvious. Number one, hard training. Number two, eating enough calories to fuel your training and recovery. And unless you're severely restricting it, protein actually comes in for support at number three. In fact, there's even some cases where protein can actually start hurting your growth rather than helping it. For one, protein is arguably the most filling food you can eat, and it also burns the most calories to digest. If you struggle to gain weight, this can make it harder to eat enough to grow. Not to mention the GI discomfort and flatulence that can come from higher protein diets. You're not gonna like it, and neither will the people around you. Second, it's expensive. Let's say your body only needs about 100 grams of protein a day, but you decide to push it up to 200. That extra 100 grams isn't giving you any additional muscle. Your body just burns it for energy. Now, if that extra protein is coming from chicken,
Again, it depends who you are. I'm 190, so I gotta have around 200 grams of protein per day to grow.
that's about $5 added to your grocery bill every single day. But if you replace those calories with carbs, like potatoes, you get the same amount of energy for less than $1. That's a difference of around $120 a month, or nearly $1,500 a year. And third, when protein takes up too many of your calories, it pushes out carbs and fats. Too low fat can mess your hormones, whereas too low carbs drains your glycogen, tanking your workout performance.
If you're over 10% of your total calories in fat, you're fine. Most people, 20 to 30%, you're golden. In order to actually really push out carbs and fat, that's like overdosing on water.
Now, I'll share exactly how much protein I'm currently eating and the ranges I'd recommend at the end of this video. But just because protein is overhyped, it doesn't mean it's useless. There's actually 3 situations where protein has major benefits. First, although you can still build muscle without very much protein, the analysis that I showed you earlier, it does suggest a meaningful bump in gains when you go from very low protein intakes up to moderate ones. In fact, Alex mentioned that once he starts going below 90 grams of protein per day, his muscle recovery becomes noticeably slower. This threshold is right around 0.55 grams per pound of body weight. So if you take the number of grams of protein you eat in a day and you divide it by your body weight in pounds, and the number that you get is below 0.55, you'll almost certainly see more growth by eating more protein.
His whole premise, that first 10 minutes of his video, was saying you don't have to have anywhere near 55% of your weight in protein, right? Now he's contradicting himself, saying you should have at least that.
The second scenario is when you're dieting.
We often talk about how protein can backfire because, it has such a satiating effect. It can reduce appetite, but that becomes really a big game changer when we're dieting down, right? So being able to attenuate hunger and increase fullness on a high protein diet becomes really helpful when we're trying to lose weight and restrict calories. Now, if you're over 15% body fat, you've got plenty of stored energy, so you don't have to worry too much about cutting into muscle as you're losing weight. But once you start to get below 15% body fat, protein becomes extra important. We recently published a meta-analysis.
This is crazy because he was going towards a very small group of people, which I guarantee you 5% of his audience doesn't lift at all. This was also geared towards people that are under 12% body fat. I want to look this up real quick. Hey, ChatGPT, what percent of men are under 12% body fat?
There's no exact national statistic on how many men are under 12% body fat, but here's what we know. The average body fat for US men is around 28%. Athletic men are usually in the 6 to 13% range, so under 12% is lean even for athletes. It's safe to say it's a small minority, but hard data doesn't pinpoint an exact percentage. In short, if you're under 12%, you're definitely in a lean minority.
Just give me a rough estimate.
Probably around 10 to 15% of men or less. It's a minority, definitely not average.
I think that's even higher than what it is. I think it's probably closer to 5%.
Specifically on lean dieting people, and found that their protein needs tend to be a lot higher than we would typically see in people who are either not dieting or not quite as lean.
And the third scenario is adherence. Some people just enjoy eating protein. I'm Filipino, and for me, rice without some kind of protein on the plate, it just feels incomplete. And that's also why I still use protein powder. I even sell my own brand, and while this video probably isn't the best marketing for it, I still use it almost every day. Not because it's magic, but because it's a quick, tasty, and versatile way for me to get 30 grams of protein in just a single scoop. But let's get to what you're actually waiting for. How much protein should you actually eat? So, for the majority of lifters, eating 0.55 to 0.63 grams per pound of body weight will already be close to maximizing your gains. For a 160-pound person, that would be around 88 to 100 grams of protein per day. And remember, protein sneaks into your diet in more ways than just shakes and chicken breast.
And that's the lowest range, and that's literally higher than what he's been saying the entire video.
Bread, beans, peanut butter, it all adds up. I even scanned this simple meal with my app, just a protein shake and 2 slices of peanut butter toast. And that's already 50 grams of protein. So hitting your protein target could be a...
Peanut butter is also not a viable protein source. It's 80% fat. You're going to be getting a couple hundred calories, only 10 grams protein. Do something else. Like get PB2 or PB Fit.
Simple as adding 1 protein shake to your day. Now, if you do want a little extra insurance, you can go slightly higher to about 0.64 to 0.72 grams per pound. Think of this zone as very likely maximizing your gains. But if you're dieting and you're below 15% body fat, or let's just say you're somebody who wants the reassurance that you are definitely maximizing your gains, then you can bump this up to 0.73 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. As for what I'm currently doing, I used to sit at well over 1 gram per pound of body weight per day because I just thought it was necessary. These days, I'm actually closer to 0.73, right at the lower end of this maximized range. And I notice no differences in my gains. If anything, shifting some of those calories towards carbs instead has made my training as well as my digestion feel a whole lot better. Plus, I used to panic about protein whenever I travel. Now I know that even just 1 protein shake and a high protein dinner, that's pretty much covering my bases. So next time, before you buy those overpriced protein snacks, maybe buy a calculator to figure out how much protein you actually need first.
All right, so let's break this down. This video is predominantly going to be focused on untrained people, people brand new to the gym, and just getting started. If you're just lifting weights and you are brand new, protein, you don't need to really get a whole lot. But as you put on more muscle mass, as you start getting more advanced, the amount of protein you have is actually going to be much more important. All our clients are generally on 80% of their weight in protein, and so they're going to be losing weight and putting on muscle mass at the exact same time and leaning out, which is what most people want to do, because they're giving their body a reason to put on the muscle mass through lifting weights and the macronutrient to do it too through protein. Protein, as I said before, helps put on the muscle mass, restore broken down muscle tissue, increases your metabolic rate, so increases your TEF, thermogenic response to eating food, and your body sucks metabolizing it, so you do stay full longer. You're trying to be in a calorie surplus, liquid protein is going to be really helpful. Still try to hit the protein target of at least 0.8, maybe 1 gram of protein per day per body weight, and then get your other calories through liquids. Liquids are going to be the easiest way to actually get extra calories. I think this video is half right. I wish it was more clear on the studies and who actually was in those studies, because I guarantee you most people watching this video are not untrained and they do work out, and this would actually hurt them, not help them. So I'll see you next time.